Hey, good morning or good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this. Welcome to the February podcast for PPM, obviously 2022. A couple things to go over in the beginning. Number one, don't forget the like and subscribe button. We had 3 additional subscribes last time, which is kind of really cool, but we could use some more. Remember, when you subscribe to the podcast, as soon as we put it up on the channel, you get a notice in your email as to, hey, there's a new podcast up. So that's kind of neat. That's what you want to do, subscribe. And again, we always like those like buttons if you hit your like button. If you're on the computer, it's real easy. If you're watching this on your television, a little more difficult trying to get to those like buttons, but it can be done. A little playing with it, you'll get it down fine. A couple things. Confusion. We had a big issue in reference to the adult and child mannequin. In the old days, American Heart said it's okay to use the adult mannequin as a child when you're doing your practice. The problem we see with that is, if in fact your child is that size, that's such a large child, you're going to be doing adult techniques on them because they're so large. The bottom line is, we said last year, starting January of this year, all of our instructors must have a child mannequin, because when you see the difference in size, you're going to use the one-handed start for CPR. You're going to use the right bag valve mask for child. Remember, there's an adult bag, a child bag, and an infant bag. So use the right bag valve mask for the right size person. If you don't have a BVM, in real world, you drop back to mouth. Okay, there's no such thing as using an adult BVM on anything but an adult. Okay, so we've got that clear. So I don't want to see that on any mannequins, wrong BVMs in the future. Okay, number 2, HSI. HSI, as you know, recently hit us with, everybody's got to do a monitor update. And so everybody's going online doing this update, and they're charging $30 for that update. And we kind of went to war with them, saying, wait a minute, all of our people have been through the American Heart Association update, they've done all their stuff, they've been monitored, they're doing all the things they're supposed to do, and now you're coming up with another update, and what's the difference here? And the reality is, 90% of their update is talking about their company, what they do, and not really about skills and technique. So we went to them, we said, hey, listen, this is insane. We've got 500 instructors that are part of this, and you're telling all these people they got to pay $30 after the Heart just did it. It was free for the Heart Association. They didn't charge us separately for the update. So they came back with a counter proposal and said, okay, we're going to cut that in half. So they charge us $17.50 per person to do this. So that's not a super duper win, but the reality is, hey, that's better than 30 something. It was what, 35 originally, and now it's $17.50. So you got to go on our website, our PPM company store, pay your $17.50. That literally just gets turned around, and we have to mail a check to ASHI or HSI for the $17.50 payment. Okay, so we're not making anything off of this. This is a straight through bypass directly to them for that $17.50. Okay, the other thing new is Scott Coleman. Scott's got a brand new office in Owings Mills. Pretty cool. He's done really good. Multiple instructors, multiple vehicles. So when we hear our instructor saying, well, I can't find anybody to teach CPR to, hey, Scott's done extremely well. He's got multiple contracts with companies, really grown his company. Hats off, and anything we can do, and I'm looking forward to getting out to see his new place, doing a cup of coffee and lunch with Scott at his place. Now, we just got this in the email. This is in reference to our channel, and again, we got 3 new subscribers, which is kind of neat, but remember, if you hit that subscribe button, it works really well. 199 views, total views. That's pretty cool. Again, with 500 instructors, we should have more than 199 views, but I'll take it. And then 1,415 minutes of people actually watching the podcast. So that in itself is kind of a neat thing. We've gone from only a handful of people watching to almost 200 people watching. So that's great. Keep up the good work. And what we're going to do now, our secret word for this podcast is infant, because Key's going to go through the infant, and primarily the things that we're looking for when we actually monitor you doing the skills, we want to see these particular things. So she's going to go through how it's supposed to look, and then you can watch this multiple times before your monitors to see this is what we're doing, this is what we're looking for. So when we see you do your monitor, there really shouldn't be any problems with the infant and doing the infant skills. Okay, that's it for me. I'm going to turn my mic off and back to Key. Okay, it's all yours.
All right. Hello, everyone. As Mr. Joe said, I will be going over things that we need to see in your classes, especially for your BLS class. So this will be a demonstration for that. I'm going to go over a scenario. We're going to assume that you already watched a video or you spoke about the infant, but I'm going to start with a video so I'll put you in the mind frame. So you're watching this infant and you're all alone. And by the way, this infant wasn't feeling very well, and you also didn't have a cell phone. When you go check on this baby, you notice that the baby's color doesn't look too well. You're going to do that tap. Are you okay? Are you okay? Baby is not responding. Immediately, we're going to check that brachial pulse from your side, 5 no more than 10 seconds. This infant has no pulse. I'm going into that high quality CPR, placing my 2 fingers slightly below the nipple line. I'm going to compress at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute at a depth of 1.5 inches, 1/3 the chest depth. While I'm doing these chest compressions, I am allowing this chest to recool, and I'm counting out loud. You should demonstrate that when you're showing your students. After allowing that chest to recool between compressions so that heart can fill up with blood needed for the vital organs, I will perform a head tilt chin up, not overextending this infant's head. I give an example of just like bending a straw, you can cut off the airway. I'm going to cover this infant's nose and mouth with my mouth to give a rescue breath, but I'm not going to give an excessive breath, which means I would not give the child the same breath that I would give an adult. After giving those 2 rescue breaths and watching that chest rise and fall, immediately I'm going back into my chest compressions. I would perform 5 cycles or 2 minutes of CPR. Then I'm taking this baby with me to the phone to dial 911. What we're not seeing is the tap. You see most instructors tapping at the shoulders. We know that's not the case with our little ones. This is the most sensitive part of the body. We're also seeing a lot of reach overs. Make sure that the person knows to check the pulse from their side. No reach overs. Also, just explain to them the gentleness of an infant and the innocence of the infant. Yes, I used the example of not having my cell phone for one reason. The reason is we want to drive home that you perform 5 cycles, 2 minutes of CPR on infants and children first, and then call 911 unless a phone is present. Of course, no one leaves the house without a cell phone, so we would put it on speaker and dial 911. But if it's not present, the reason why we perform those 5 cycles, 2 minutes of CPR first is normally with infants is some type of respiratory issue, and normally with adults is some type of cardiac. So you already have driven that message home. I'm going to move on now from a 1-person rescue to a 2-person rescue. And you can demonstrate this by yourself until you get with a partner. Explained already teen dynamics and everything is gone over. Also, when you go into this point, you can actually tap on the 1-person rescue where you do that 2-thumb and circle a hand technique, supporting that infant's back with your fingers and compressing with your thumbs. At that time, you can explain if you cannot perform chest compressions with 2 fingers for that 1-person rescue, that's your other option. We all know when it comes to a 2-person rescue infant, we are doing that in circle of hand technique. We also know that because it's teen dynamics, we should count out loud. We also know that that count changes from 30 to 2 to 15 and 2. And we also are aware that we include that bag valve mask, also known as your ambu bag. With that said, I'm going to demonstrate as if I'm 2 people. And you always get a laugh out of that if you put a little humor in your class. So again, I'm going into that in circle of hand technique, compressing with my thumbs, supporting that infant's back with my fingers, and compressing and counting out loud. After my 15 compressions at 100 to 120 compressions per minute, you always demonstrate using that bag valve mask from the head of your patient so you can have a clear view of ventilation. This gives your student the opportunity to go over ventilating with a bag valve mask. It makes it easier, it's much smaller. Also talking about that CE technique. C to compress the mask firmly to your patient's face. E with those 3 fingers to extend to get that rescue breath in. So I'm going to make a tight seal around that jawline with that E. C to compress, E to extend to get those 2 rescue breaths in. After 5 cycles, 2 minutes of CPR, you would switch to prevent fatigue. And you explain that to your students as well as letting them know after about 5 cycles, 2 minutes of CPR, someone should be checking for a pulse. Now I'm going to move on to choking. This is near and dear to my heart because most people don't realize that these little bundles of joy are like a sack of potatoes. They're actually heavy. I always seem to have available a heavier infant so that people will get the idea, the weight of an infant. You do a little scenario describing what they may see with a choking infant. So with most children or small infants, they give you a look like they're going to scream, but nothing comes out. They may even drool and begin to change colors. Recognizing that emergency, I will support my infant's head and neck to prevent that shaken baby syndrome. Remembering that gravity is your friend in that downward position between the shoulder blades, you'll give those 5 firm back slaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Supporting that infant's head and neck. Flipping her over. If you notice, she's still in that downward position. With my 2 fingers, I'll give those 5 chest thrusts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back slaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Chest thrusts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will continue to do this until the object comes out, or if my child becomes unconscious, I would find a flat surface, start that high quality CPR with chest compressions first, but before ventilating, I would look in the mouth to see if I see an object. If seen, I would remove it. If not, I do not perform a blind sweep. Keep in mind what we're finding, that most people will hold the baby up in the air and hit like so. The baby is heavy. You gotta admit, the baby is still alert. You will drop this child. So remember to support on your arm and your leg. Remember that gravity is your friend, and give those back slaps. Some are still mentioning black blows. We know why we don't use that term anymore. It's been out of the door for years, but we still hear it. So remember, back slaps, not back blows. I thank you for being here with me and experiencing this demonstration. If you have any questions, please call the office. Thank you.